Hey everybody, this is CJ, your local friendly technology addict, and this is yet another episode of the Tech Addict's Attic. This video is take 37, I think, of this particular episode, because as you all know, I only have the one camera, I do not have any editing software, and I do them all in one take. So I start prattling on and prattling on and on and on and on, and I want to say thank you to those of you who tolerate that, and even those who don't. You know when to hit that double speed so that you can get to the good stuff. I'm going to try to start putting descriptions of what time frame I actually get to the crux of the video, but wouldn't it be better if I just did that right away? So, without further ado, I took apart Bob, Blackview BV9500Pro, so that I could replace the camera glass and actually more specifically the speaker down here in the bottom, because you don't have to take it apart to replace the camera glass. It does make it easier if you've already got it apart, which I did for the speaker. So I was able to push out through from the inside and then peel away the foam rubber backing with the adhesive on it. Peeling that away with a pair of forceps, peeled the glass with it. So just straight into the trash can that went, and all was clean. Just had to scrape off the remaining foam backing and whatnot, but that went back together pretty well. And it was easier to do when I had the case already off and the phone innards already out of the case. But I had every intention of taking this apart. I'll get to that in a moment. But I was admiring this phone. I'm not going to say I was impressed by it, because honestly, we should expect this today. We should expect phones to be built at least this well. And on that note, when I'm in the forum and I'm reading people posting about different things, some people will complain that they've got a certain problem with a phone, and somebody else chimes in, hey, I've got that problem too. Someone else chimes in, hey, me three, how can we fix this? And then Blackview admin comes in there and says, well, did you do a factory reset on the phone first? Because you know he's going to ask for that, right? It's going to become a running joke in that forum. But basically, you have a few people that have the same problem with the phone, so it makes it look like the phone has a defect. There are many reasons why that might happen. Maybe this defect got through in the lot that the guy doing QA was sick and they had somebody else stand in who didn't want to do it, day ending in Y, right? Mondays and Fridays especially. But honestly, if you had 100,000 of these phones and you have a 0.1% failure rate, you're going to have 100 of them fail. And that 0.1% failure rate, when I say that, I'm talking about the ones that actually make it out of QA. Maybe they're in a semi-truck going up to the docks to get loaded onto the ship, and maybe the truck driver, maybe whoever loaded the trailer didn't load it properly, and truck driver's got to slam on his brakes because some idiot pulls in front of him. Because I've seen the YouTube videos of the roads overseas, and people cannot drive any better overseas than they can in the States. So truck driver slams on his brakes, half of his load slams up against the front end of the trailer because it wasn't loaded properly. Okay, that could cause some damage, right? And it wouldn't be noticed. They'd look at the boxes, oh, the box looks okay, it's maybe a little dented, but you know, that's why you put things in boxes, is to protect them. Well, maybe it didn't work. Or maybe they're on the freight container and they're loading it onto the ship, and the container is dropped a little too quickly and it bangs against another container on the ship, or another container bangs on it. Any number of things can happen that cause a few hundred devices to fail after passing QA. And those devices get to the customers, and then multiple customers have the same device fail in the same way, because the same chip is equally fragile on all of the devices. So you wind up with the same problem, even though all of these devices pass QA. It looks like the phone has a defect. And I'm not defending the company. Maybe the phone does have a defect. But I'm just saying, you don't know one way or the other. So that's why they have warranty. If we have a defect, we want to know about it. Now, I say we. I don't work for Blackview. But if I have a company, if I'm manufacturing something and I've got a defect in that something, I want you to tell me if you're not satisfied, so that I can look at whatever I'm doing over here and make sure that I'm doing it well enough that I'm going to continue selling my product. Because if it gets out that I don't care, I'm not going to sell any more product. I'm not going to make any more money. And bottom line, that's what we're in this for, is to make money. There's nothing wrong with that. You've got to feed your family. okay? So, yeah, you're in it to make money. Now, when I took this thing apart, I'm not saying I was impressed, but I was pleased with what I found. I admired it because it is a rugged little device. So, first and foremost, the entirety of your phone fits in about a 5 by 7 by 1 centimeter area. Okay? It'd probably help if I had this focusing a little bit closer. What I wanted to do was get into it enough that I could see the radio chip inside it. And maybe if I took this off and popped it out and then took this off and popped it out and took this off, popped it out, I'd be able to do that. But there are an awful lot of these tiny little ribbon cables that I can see. Like there's one right there. You can see the connector on it. And that's an awful lot of work. If I were to start taking them apart, I'd have to be certain that I'd be able to get them back together, and I'm just not confident that I'd be able to do that. So as much as I want to find out what SDR they used in this hardware, I'm afraid it's going to have to wait for somebody who actually has one completely fail. And by then it's too late, because by the time they completely fail, you're either getting a warranty replacement or you're moving on to other hardware. And if you're moving on to other hardware, so is everybody else. And that makes it a moot point. So we're not going to find out what SDR is being used. We may not even be able to use it if I keep dropping it like that. Also, that BV right there is a plastic rivet, and there's no way for me to take that out without destroying it. That's their tamper-proofing right there. Pop that out, they know that you've had the phone open and you voided your warranty. It's bad enough that I've cracked the phone open, but when I put it all back together, they won't be able to tell that I've had it open. But if I take that off, then they know that I've been messing around in there in areas that I shouldn't have to. If anything in here fails, I'm going to be getting a replacement phone. End of story. Because that is the phone. This is just a shell. This is the case. This is your monitor, keyboard, and mouse, and even audio output to some degree. But this is comparable to a desktop computer. I mean, there's the innards right there. That's your motherboard and all of your video card and your audio card, your hard drive, memory, RAM, all of your sensors that you would have, which actually, so this is even more than a typical desktop computer, because you got your gyrometer, you got your magnetometer, fingerprint sensor, which I guess you could have that on a desktop's keyboard. Well, and the fingerprint sensor is down here. But the point being, this is basically a desktop computer shoved into a 5 by 7 by 1 centimeter cube. Right? So they're cramming an awful lot of tech into this. And you're going to have parts fail. Now, I've taken apart Samsung phones. I've taken apart a Galaxy Note 4. I've taken apart a... Actually, no, I've only taken apart the Note 4. That's the only Samsung phone I have had apart. I've taken apart my LG G5 several times. I have taken apart my Galaxy, the Galaxy Note 4, the LG G5, my Touch 4G Slide, and the HTC G1, the T-Mobile G1. In all of those phones, there are circuit boards with components all over them, and it looks cool. It's technology. It's all computery stuff. But the problem is, when you have multiple boards like that, you have multiple points of failure. You have multiple connections that are multiple points of failure. You have multiple chips that are multiple points of failure. And what you wind up doing when they're all dispersed throughout the phone, a tap in the wrong space on the phone can damage any number of components. Maybe your gyrometer's up here, and a tap there breaks your gyrometer. Maybe your magnetometer's down here, tap there breaks your compass. Any number of things, and you lose one or two features of the phone. but it continues to work. And maybe it's even a replaceable board. Okay, that's great. So you go and you pay 30 bucks for a replacement board, put it in, and you fix your phone. Great, wonderful. You can't do that with this. With this, you got to buy the whole thing. And this part that I'm holding probably would cost me a good $200 or $300. I mean, the phone's only $430, fully manufactured. But everything in here is very dense. It's very integrated. It's very compact, and that makes it rugged. If you strike this, everything in that area gets the same force at the same amount, the same rate, the same direction, same acceleration. Chances of something breaking, either it all breaks or none of it breaks, because all the force is distributed evenly among all the parts. I could be wrong. I could have a bad understanding of that. I may not understand that, but that's my understanding of it. So that actually makes it more rugged, having everything close together like that, compact and dense. Now, the case. Let me focus this a little bit closer. You can see the case will warp, okay? It does flex, it's only plastic, but it's taken a good amount of effort to do that. I can tell it's a thick plastic, which is good. That'll absorb shock. I'm not about to twist this too much, but it seems even more rigid than the backing does. So ruggedness is, I'll say it's there. But here's what I was pleased about. This phone, when I was screwing my antenna into it, and I think I may have mentioned this in the other video, I was screwing my antenna in, and I had it in, and of course it was more like that. It's rotated since then, but I was turning it in and I wanted to snug it up, and as I snugged it, it went a little too far. My heart sank. I thought I had twisted the connector. I don't know why I thought that. Any part of this antenna system, that connector is going to be the strongest part. I actually twisted the rubber on the antenna, and now it's actually loose and won't stay on if I'm not careful with it. But I'm pleased with that because I see now how the antenna connector is made, and even if I did manage to spin that on the inside, it's not going to change anything because it's a wiper contact. Like most of the contacts on a phone, it's a wiper as opposed to a soldered wire or a clip-on. So I don't have to worry about that, so I'm pleased with that. And in fact, this is the connector right there. So you can see how it's just spring-loaded contacts, 2 for the shell and 1 for the pin. So that's something else. The pin on here, you can see has a certain taper, and somewhere along the line something pushed that in, crammed it in to where the taper was down on that phenolic part, that little white plastic part. And when I took it apart, I noticed that the center on here was pushed in some. So I just took a little nubbin of something and pushed it back out to where it belongs. It should be flush on the inside. And then the pin there, if I can find where my focal point is, there we are. That pin right there should match. Here we are. Should match the pin on a piece of coax or another antenna or whatever. And that was the thing, is it didn't, and I could tell that something had pushed it in because it looked different from when I first saw it. And maybe that's why I've been having some reception issues lately. I don't know. Yeah, I just had a whole slew of thoughts run through my head that I'm going to have to revisit a few experiments that I did, but I digress. So I'm pleased with this. I am pleased with how the antenna connector is made. I would like a better connection than that, but it's a cell phone. We have to make some considerations for what we have to work with. I am pleased with this gasket all the way around. So where the two halves of the shell come together, it is sealed. You may see all of this white stuff is very similar to the caulk that you have in your bathroom or your kitchen sink. I'm sure it's not the same exact stuff, but it's basically the same stuff. It's the same concept at the very least. It is soft and pliable, but a little bit harder than what you would work with in a bath and tub, a bath and tile kind of caulk. So it's similar. It may even be the same. Maybe that's what they use in China. I don't know. But every microphone hole is sealed. Every hole where the gasket, so you got this gasket on the back of the SD card cover, you got a ridge in there that mates up with the gasket on here. So water could get into any of these holes that are around here. Guess what? On the back side, they're all sealed. Water is not going to get in, okay? Sealed around your power plug, sealed around the microphone on the bottom. The headphone jack is sealed because there's a gasket on the inside where it fits into the case. Every opening that there is on this thing is sealed, including around the speaker. The speaker itself has a seal around it. So, in fact, I'll show you this one because I've got it handy. It's very similar to the seal around the earpiece speaker. And of course, this one here doesn't have a seal because of the gasket over there, so it doesn't need one. And there's nothing aside from that speaker. There's no way for water to get into the lid. So, assuming that nothing is damaged in transit and it passes QA, your phone is in fact waterproof. That doesn't mean take it to the bottom of the Marianas, but it is waterproof. You can take it in your swimming pool and, you know, do the fun photos that we see of kids playing and so forth. But I just wanted to share that because everywhere that water might have gotten in, I'm confident now when I put this thing back together, I can put it in the water. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it at all. I know it'll work. I won't be able to interact with the screen because water has a capacitive effect no different than putting your entire palm on the screen or pressing it up against your belly. And people don't realize that. They think they should be able to take the screen underwater and be able to interact with the phone underwater. No, you're not going to interact with the phone underwater. If you need to take a video underwater, start the video before you put it in the water, right? Or set up one of these, if you've rooted your phone, you can set it up to where you can press one of the buttons, like the SOS button or something like that, the shortcut button, to start and stop your shutter. That would be useful. Or maybe the volume buttons to start and stop a video on something like Open Camera. That's something that allows you to do. So if you want to do a video underwater, do that. But the fact is, you're not going to be interacting with the screen underwater. It's not going to work. Don't expect it to. But you can take the phone underwater and not be worried about damaging anything or water leaking in, because water's not going to get into this thing if it was made right. I'm looking at it. I am well pleased with this device. So I think that's enough for this video. I have prattled on long enough. I just wanted to share what I found and share that, you know, this is a good device. I don't want to, you know, like sit here and say, hey, everybody should have one of these, because it's not for everybody. Not everybody needs a two-way radio. Not everybody needs a, you know, 10,000 milliamp hour brick of a battery. And I did find even the label on the battery says that it's 10,000 milliamp hours. But I never trust labels because this is just a sticker wrapped around the thing. And I tried taking this off, but there's no way. I'm not going to be able to get into that. So even though all of my software reports it as 9,000, I'll accept that it's 10,000. It's not if I could put 27,000 on there. I had one battery. In fact, I have it right here. This is the MyTouch 4G slide battery, And you can see why I don't trust the label. That's a 2450 milliamp hour. No, it's actually only 10,000 milliamp, or 10,000. Look at that. It's only actually 1520 stock, 5.62 watt hours. That's a lie. 2450 is a lie. And all it is a label. I mean, it's the same cell. It's just one of them. You're not going to get double the capacity from the same size cell. It's just not going to happen. So I don't trust labels. But you know what? This is a professionally done, factory-looking label. I'll accept that as being gospel truth. That's a 10,000 milliamp hour battery right there. And they even show the watt hours too, which is something the liars I've noticed don't always do. So 10,385, 3.85, 38.5 watt hours. You can do the math and you figure out that those are correct. It's a good phone, people. If you're on the fence about this particular phone, go ahead and buy it. You won't be disappointed. I don't know. You might be disappointed. You might be one of the 100 people out of 100,000 who get a bad one. So don't quote me. Or if you're maybe comparing with a Ulefone 3T, hey, I'd love to see a Ulefone 3T taken apart if anybody's got one, because it's basically the same hardware. It's essentially a 10,300 or something like that milliamp hour battery. It's got the same amount of, aside from the two-way radio and the battery, the specifications are the same between the Blackview BV9500 non-Pro and the Ulefone Armor 3T. The 9500 Pro has a little bit more RAM, a little bit more storage, has the two-way radio, but a slightly smaller battery. Between the two, all things being equal, otherwise, I think that this is probably the better phone. But again, I've never seen a Ulefone, so if you've got one and you want to do a video of taking it apart, please do so. Comment with a link to the video so that I can watch it and so that everybody else who's on the fence can watch it. But I'm pleased with this phone, and I think it was a good purchase, at least for me. I think it'd be a good purchase for most people who I know, as long as they're respectful of federal law with regards to transmitting in the radio spectrum. Because that's one thing I don't like. I've not found any FCC qualifications for the two-way transceiver in this device. I found plenty of evidence that the phone itself passed all inspections, but when it comes to amateur radio, we fall under a different category. Part 97 versus Part 95 versus Part whatever, Part 15, I guess. So we've actually got a different set of regulations, and we have to be aware of the hardware that we're using. So the hardware doesn't get licensed. The operator does when it comes to amateur radio. Unfortunately, that means that I cannot legally use this in the FRS band, because the FRS radios have to be Part 95 certified, and this is not. I see no evidence that this has been Part 95 certified. Maybe it has, and I just haven't found it yet. But it is what it is. I don't use FRS anyway. I use 70 centimeter amateur radio with it, so I'm still legal, at least. But it's a good device. All right, I'll leave it at that. Thank you for watching, and thank you for sticking through it with me. If you like these videos, feel free to subscribe. You know, I'm not going to complain, right? And if you need to play them at double speed or skip through parts, I'm not going to be offended, because I know I prattle on. So 73s, everybody, and until next time, I'll see you then. This is CJ, your local friendly technology addict, signing off.